Critics of New York Governor Kathy Hochul say she is dragging her feet on a promised probe into her former boss, ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now, Hocul initially said she would get to the bottom of Cuomo's disastrous pandemic nursing home policy. However, according to the Gotham Gazette, Hocul has yet to appoint any investigators or even seek proposals from outside consultants.
Hocul has just been confirmed as the Democratic nominee for governor in November's election, receiving almost 70% of her party's votes in the primary. The governor's critics speculate that her slow moves on the Cuomo investigation are linked to the upcoming election. State Assemblyman from New York, Ron Kemp, has been on this story since the early days of the pandemic. He's here with us to discuss these latest developments. Welcome to Rising.
Thank you for having me back on.
So help remind us exactly what Cuomo needs to be investigated for. I think it has receded into the memory banks of a lot of the craziness that was 2020. You know, what should we be focused on right now?
Well, in the middle of a pandemic, the former governor chased down a $5.1 million book deal as he purposely suppressed life and death toll numbers around nursing homes. For months, lawmakers pushed for the truth and transparency, but they kept gaslighting us and the public from getting the truth about how many people died in this facility so we can make better decisions in the middle of the pandemic. But we need a thorough investigation as to why he did this, why he gave near blanket legal immunity to his top donors, why he chose to protect industry profits over saving people's lives in the middle of a pandemic.
And what's the accusation then, the alleged link between Hocul dragging her feet on pursuing this investigation and her own upcoming election?
I mean, one can surmise that the same people that funded the former governor's campaigns are the same stakeholders who are funding the current governor. Nothing has changed in terms of the power structure in places like Albany. The nursing home syndicate, the hospital, the insurance, the private equity money that comes through Albany, they're the ones that are in control of places like the state capital of New York. So Governor Hocul is still protecting those interests when she had promised, when she took office, to deliver for the families and victims, and we continue to hold her accountable for those promises.
And she has said, there was some reporting that, we're getting outside investigators, consultants, et cetera. It suggested we're putting together this kind of team, was applauded for doing so. That was a while ago. But my understanding is nothing of the sort is actually really happening. Can you, talk to us about that? Are we missing something? Is there actually an investigation underway? It doesn't seem like it.
No, it certainly doesn't seem like it at all. The state controller validated it just a couple of weeks ago. There has been no communication by the executive, which would have begun some sort of an outside investigation. But that in itself is also a misleading path toward getting the transparency. We already consulted outside groups like McKinsey to come in and write audits and reports in 2020, which absolved the Department of Health and any of the state government of any wrongdoings. We want a bipartisan, independent commission with full subpoena power to get to the bottom of why we did this, who made mistakes, and who should be held accountable. This is the only way we can learn from the mistakes so we don't repeat them moving forward and give closure to the thousands of grieving families that felt like they lost their loved ones due to bad policies.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit more, what the actual human stakes of all of this were?
I've been working around with the families who lost loved ones in nursing homes, including my own family. I lost my uncle in April of 2020. He was a veteran. He was the reason why I came to this country. He sponsored my visa when I was a young immigrant coming to this country. And for him to die alone, just like thousands of others, in excruciating pain. And this is just one of the most horrible experiences a person can go through. Being isolated, gasping for air, wondering why your loved ones could not come to visit or save you from these facilities. The trauma, pain that these families have gone through must be accounted for. And one way to do that is to get to the truth. And it's not, this isn't politics. It's not, vilifying, one politician or another. but it's just getting to the truth so we don't repeat these mistakes and prioritizing older lives from this country.
And can you tell us about the legislation you have co-sponsored to set up a kind of independent investigation?
I've been working with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to create a true bipartisan commission to go back and thoroughly investigate and expose what happened with these nursing home facilities. Obviously, if we do this correctly, very powerful individuals and groups will be implicated in talking about people with billions of dollars in the healthcare industry to all the way to potentially labor union groups that have known about the bad policies but signed off on them. And that's part of the reason why there's been an institutional effort to slow walk this or just not do it at all, because there's just too many people that may be caught up on these mistakes, and there could be a reckoning in places like Albany, which may impact for the rest of the country. And quite frankly, we need this type of reckoning because we've been failing at long-term care policies for years when we've known that we have a crisis in front of us and we haven't been able to take care of people who should be living with dignity and retiring safely in their homes, but we've been neglecting them for decades. But now is the time, if there's ever, to have a reckoning in our healthcare to get this right moving forward.
Right. There's some speculation that there were similar policies, perhaps in other states. I'm from Michigan. I know we've featured reporters on the show who have looked into and discussed that maybe to some extent there were similar nursing home policies going on under the Whitmer administration, and that raises the question of, do powerful interests want to not have an investigation because it's no longer just about Cuomo? He's old news. If they could throw the book at him, whatever, sacrifice him. But nobody in power wants to open it up to this broader question of, well, are there other governors complicit? Are there other forces complicit? And that's why we really need an investigation, right?
That's right. And I think every governor made slightly different decisions. But one universal decision they made was sending unprepared COVID positive patients to unprepared long-term facilities when they could not take care of them. Many executives made this decision and mandated it. What this governor in New York did was take a step further and monetize the moment. And he was chasing down a multi-million-dollar book deal as he made these bad decisions and suppressing the truth from the public. That's why it's even more draconian in New York State.
Yes.
But as other governors made the same policy errors, we should be honest about the mistakes that we made. And I think the more transparent, honest we are, the more forgiving the people will be. But we almost lost that window of being truthful. Now we've covered up the truth for years, and we're doubling down on the lies, and people are less forgiving. But I still believe if you're just coming forward and be accountable to the mistakes, the American public will be forgiving as long as there's accountability.
Well, thank you, Ron, for staying on this story and for joining us today.
Thank you so much for your time.
We will have more Rising for you after this.